My name is Mara Ellison. I'm 32 years old. I'm a structural engineer from Seattle, and I lost my right leg below the knee when I was 25. A construction site collapse that took 11 seconds to change everything. People hear that and say, "Wow, you're so strong." I used to smile and nod. I thought endurance was the same as strength. It took me 7 more years to learn the difference. But before I get into any of that, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments. I want to know how far this is reaching. It started on a Sunday, the way most quiet disasters do. I was at my parents' house for brunch, the kind of brunch where my mum irons the cloth napkins and my dad pours coffee like he's the host of his own show. My sister Danny was there too, radiant in the way people are when they're keeping a secret they're proud of. My dad set down his mug and said, "We're thinking Portugal, just the 5 of us, 2 weeks." Then he looked at his toast, not at me, at his toast. My mum smiled with her whole face, the way she does when the decision's already been made. And this is simply the announcement. Danny started talking about Lisbon neighborhoods like she'd been researching for months. No one asked if I wanted to come. They never do. I said what I always say in those moments, the small, accommodating sound that passes for agreement. Of course, that sounds amazing. And they kept talking, their voices braiding together into plans, itineraries, restaurant names, flights. That night, a notification hit my phone. $11,400 in travel charges, all routed through the joint card I'd opened with my parents 3 years ago, just for emergencies. I sat on my kitchen floor with my prosthetic half off, staring at the screen. I didn't cry. I didn't call. I opened the app, found the card, and pressed freeze. The icon turned grey. They called it a vacation. I called it a transaction with a bow on it. But here's what I need you to understand. Portugal wasn't the beginning. Betrayal in my family never announced itself. It arrived wearing ordinary clothes, speaking in the language of course, and you understand, and we just assumed. 3 winters ago, I drove 4.5 hours through an ice storm to make it home for the holidays. I had the gifts, the good wine, the willingness, all of it. When I pulled into the driveway, there was an extra car I didn't recognize. Inside, my mum touched my arm before I'd even taken off my coat. "Oh, sweetheart, we gave your room to the Harmon couple. They're going through a divorce and needed somewhere to land." Then she tilted her head. "You understand, right? That phrase. You understand. In my family, it means absorb this and do not make it inconvenient for us." I slept on a fold-out couch with a broken hinge. I heard laughter from the other room until past midnight. In the morning, I helped make breakfast for everyone, including the Harmons, because that's what useful people do. The following spring, I paid the deposit on my parents' anniversary dinner. It wasn't small. The restaurant required $600 up front for the private room. When dessert came out, Danny stood up and clinked her glass. "To the people who built us," she said, "and to the ones who truly show up." Everyone laughed. I excused myself and found the manager on my way to the bathroom. I asked her to cancel the remainder of the payment and apply the deposit as partial. They were still taking photos at the table when the bill changed underneath them. It wasn't revenge then either. It was correction. Then came Danny's wedding. $14,000 appeared on my business card, itemized as event production and coordination. When I called her, she laughed. Not the nervous kind, the easy kind, the kind that meant she'd already decided I wouldn't push back. "You don't have a husband, Mara. You don't have kids. What else are you doing with it?" That sentence cracked something in my chest I hadn't known was holding. For years, I had filled every gap in my family's life. convinced that being needed was the same as being loved. I picked up every slack, smoothed every rough edge, and handed over access to my accounts, my passwords, my name on every dotted line, believing, somehow, that proximity to their happiness was a form of my own. It wasn't love, it was labor disguised as loyalty. The morning after Portugal, I made coffee before the sun came up. I opened my laptop and created a new document. I called it The Record, and I began to write everything down, not from memory, from proof. Every charge, every date, every transaction where my name had been used without my permission or for a purpose I hadn't agreed to. Screenshots, bank statements, text message receipts where they'd asked, and the ones where they hadn't. Voice notes I didn't realize I'd been saving. Venmo records with little hearts next to them. I color-coded the spreadsheet, green for amounts recovered, red for outstanding violations, gray for the things that had no price tag but still cost me. My prosthetic was propped against the wall by the window. I looked at it for a long moment. People assume a prosthetic is a symbol of what you've lost. Mine has always been a symbol of what I learned to build back. That's all any of this was. By the time my friend Caleb knocked on the door around noon with sandwiches and no questions, I had filled 14 pages. "You seem different," he said, setting the food on the counter. "I'm recalibrating," I told him. He nodded, like that made complete sense. Good word for it. I made a second list that afternoon. 7 categories, 7 places my name lived in their lives without my ongoing consent. Phones, passwords, smart home, mortgage cosign, auto payments, business logins. The record itself, 7 locks, none of which I'd ever formally agreed to leave open. I started on a Tuesday because Tuesdays have no significance, and I didn't want this to feel like an event. Step 1 was the family phone plan. 5 lines, all under my account. My parents, my sister, her husband, and myself. I didn't cancel a single line. That would have been spectacle. Instead, I transferred each line to its rightful account holder with a 72-hour window to update their billing information. A standard process, completely routine. By Thursday evening, the first line went quiet. By Friday, all of theirs had. My inbox filled. "Dad, can't reach anyone. What's happening?" "Mom, I'm not getting signal. Please call." "Danny, Mara, this is insane." I read each message. I didn't reply. This wasn't a conversation. It was a consequence. Step 2 was the password vault. For years I had been the keeper. Every streaming account, every utility login, the mortgage portal, Danny's boutique backend, my parents' investment dashboard, all of it stored and maintained by me because I was good with technology and because no one had ever asked whether I wanted that responsibility. I reset the master key. The system sent out revocation emails to every linked device simultaneously. Within the hour, Netflix isn't loading. The thermostat app says unauthorized. "You're being dramatic." I wasn't being dramatic. I was being exact. Step 3, the house systems. The home my parents lived in had been upgraded 3 years ago. Smart locks, security cameras, climate control, the whole configuration, all registered under my cloud account because I'd been the one to install it when my dad's back was too bad to climb a ladder. I hit suspend on every device. The cameras blinked out. The locks defaulted to manual. The thermostat read, "Connection lost." "Dad, this has gone too far." "Mum, family does not do this to family." "Danny, I can't believe you." I read that last one twice. "I can't believe you." That's when I understood they had never actually seen me clearly enough to believe anything about me. They had only ever seen what I provided. Step 4 was the mortgage. I called the bank, explained that I wished to be removed as co-signatory on my parents' home loan, and asked what the process required. The agent walked me through it carefully. There would be a reassessment. The rate might change. I understand, I said. Please proceed. After that, the auto payments, electricity, internet, the subscription services, one by one, removed, transferred, or cancelled. The infrastructure of their daily convenience had been quietly running through my accounts for so long that dismantling it felt less like destruction and more like archaeological excavation, finding the original shape of things under years of accumulated dependency. I ate toast for dinner. I cleaned the counter with the deliberate attention of someone clearing space, not just crumbs. That night, Caleb came back. We ordered food and sat on the couch and didn't talk about any of it for a while, which was the most generous thing anyone had done for me in recent memory. They probably think this is war, he said eventually. That's because they don't know what maintenance looks like, I said. They came on a Saturday, 10 in the morning, which meant they'd planned it, driven together, maybe argued in the car about who would speak first. I saw them through the peephole. My mom, my dad, Danny. They looked diminished somehow in the flat light of the hallway. Not smaller, just less certain of their own size. I opened the door but didn't move aside. My mom spoke first, her voice pressed thin with the effort of controlled emotion. We're not here to fight. We just want to talk. We miss you, Danny added. Her eyes, though, were doing math. I kept my voice level. You don't miss me. You miss what I managed for you. The air changed. You could feel it, the way pressure shifts before weather. My dad straightened. He's good at that, the posture of authority. You've made your point, Mara, but family requires unity. You don't punish the people who love you. Unity was always another word for silence, I said, and I was never being loved. I was being budgeted. My mom's eyes filled. She has beautiful, practiced ears. I have watched them work on restaurant managers, on neighbors, on me for 32 years. We didn't know it had gotten this far. You didn't ask, I said. How far did it need to go before someone asked? My dad exhaled sharply. You're punishing us for assuming you were okay with things. I'm protecting myself from having never been asked. Danny unfolded her arms and then folded them again. This isn't who you are, Mara. I almost smiled. It's exactly who I am. You just never looked at me long enough to notice. There was a silence then, a particular kind, narrow and surgical, the kind that does the work words have been avoiding. They tried a few more angles. They would pay me back. They would do better. We could start fresh. They offered the vocabulary of repair without the architecture to support it. I shook my head slowly. This isn't a negotiation, I said. It's a reckoning. You built a system that ran on me. I shut it down. What you do next is your decision, but it won't be built on my foundation. My dad's jaw tightened. So this is your revenge. This is my recovery. My mom reached out one hand, trembling slightly. Please, Mara. I looked at all three of them, the people I had driven through ice storms for, cooked breakfasts for, underwritten and co-signed and quietly resented and quietly excused. You didn't lose a safety net, I said. You lost a daughter who finally decided she was worth protecting. The hallway went still. Even the elevator down the corridor seemed to hold its breath. Then I closed the door. No slam, no performance. Just the soft, definitive click of wood meeting frame. On the other side, voices blurred, then footsteps, then silence. Caleb was on the couch. He didn't ask. He just held out his hand, and I sat next to him, and for a long time, Neither of us said anything, and that was the kindest the world had felt in years. The first week after was the quietest of my adult life. No guilt texts, no manufactured emergencies, no we just wanted to check in calls that were actually attempts to find the soft spot in my boundary and press until it gave. Just silence. At first, it felt ominous the way deep water does before you remember you can swim. Then it felt like something else entirely. It felt like space, like the particular relief of a sound you've been so accustomed to that you stopped knowing it was noise until it stopped. I kept the same structure every morning. Coffee at 6, no phone before 8, no decisions made before I'd been awake long enough to trust myself. I journaled again for the first time in years. The handwriting was stiff at first, then easier. I wrote about the accident. I wrote about the years after, the ones where I learned to rebuild a body and forgot to notice I was also dismantling my sense of what I deserved. I wrote about the difference between being needed and being known. Caleb brought dinner twice a week and asked about my work and told me about his own life and didn't try to fix anything. That was enough. That was more than enough. One evening I opened the record again, not to add anything, just to look. The spreadsheet felt strange now, like a document from someone else's crisis. The proof had done its job. I didn't need to carry it anymore the way I had been, like armor, like justification. I renamed the folder, What Love Isn't, because that's what it had taken me all those years to learn. Love doesn't keep a running tab. It doesn't assume your compliance. It doesn't hand you the bill for someone else's celebration and call it inclusion. It doesn't require you to drive through ice storms and sleep on broken foldouts and smile at the table where your seat was given to a stranger. Love doesn't make you earn your place in a room you were born into. Spring arrived the way it does in Seattle, tentatively, then all at once. Mornings that smelled like rain and cedar and something beginning. I started running again. My prosthetic had been fitted with a newer carbon fiber blade last year, and I'd been afraid to push it, the way you're sometimes afraid to trust a repaired thing. That was over now. The first morning I ran the full loop by the water. I stopped at the Overlook Bridge, not from exhaustion. I stopped because I wanted to. Below, the bay was silver and flat and enormous. The city behind me was just waking up. I stood there and breathed. I thought about a conversation I'd had with my prosthetist years ago, early in my recovery, when I'd told her I felt like I'd lost the version of myself that used to be whole. You haven't lost her, she said. You're just learning which parts of her you get to keep. That's what all of this had been. Not destruction, not revenge. Reconstruction. Careful, deliberate, piece by piece. Some people call it resilience, the way they called it that after the accident. They mean something grand by it, something cinematic. But resilience isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet click of a door closing on what no longer belongs in your life. Sometimes it's a color-coded spreadsheet. Sometimes it's a folder renamed with 2 honest words. Sometimes it's just standing on a bridge on a Tuesday morning, breathing, and knowing, for the first time in a long time, that the space around you is yours. If this story stayed with you, I want to hear from you. Drop a 1 in the comments if you've ever been made to feel like love and usefulness were the same thing. Drop a 2 if you've ever closed a door, not with anger, but with clarity. And if you know someone who needed to hear this today, share it with them. Don't say anything, just send it. They'll know why.